Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to our session on nonprofit budgeting software. My name is Dawn Pantano. I'm a director at AAFCPAs in the business and IT consulting team.
And good afternoon. My name is Robyn Leet. I'm a partner of business process and attestations with AAFCPAs. Don and I work a lot with clients to find some efficiencies in their operations, give them some time back in their lives. And oftentimes that does involve software or some sort of technology that we help them to select. And so today we're going to be looking at one of, I think, every CFO's favorite event of the year, budgeting. So Don and I did used to be CFOs, controllers. We manage people, functions within private organizations. So we know exactly where you all are coming from and exactly all of the pain points that you go through during budgeting season. So Amy had talked a little bit about using Excel spreadsheets, and unfortunately we saw a lot of the responses to the poll, and we know that Excel is the biggest part of budgeting for a lot of organizations. But it does create some complications, and it does create efficiencies, but a lot of risk. You're dealing with manual information, you're dealing with a number of people within a file, having to trust the integrity of those formulas as they get rolled up and changed. And it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of manual compilation, and it's time consuming. And also we typically do major budgeting once a year. And if you do something once a year, you don't really get into the swing of things. You don't have a flow. So from year to year, it's really hard to remember what you're doing. You have to go back and maybe look through emails or start the process all over again of how you came to certain numbers in the budget, who you had to talk to, and any sort of trails that you had. So it creates a lot of extra time and effort not to have any sort of documentation there. And then the actual to budget reporting can oftentimes not be what we're looking for. Just even getting actuals and budgets, if it's not in the right format, there's some sort of manipulation that has to happen, integrations within systems that have to happen. And if you're not reporting on the right parts of the budget, it's really hard to grow with that budget. You're not getting the right information to know where your budgeting was right or where it was wrong so that you can move. So we're here to help. We're here to show you some options of some technology that's out there. There are a lot of budgeting solutions that are online that can really help save you time and a lot of effort. Today, we're going to be showing you screenshots from a platform called Martis. We've recently partnered with them a little bit to do some implementations because we find that it really is an effective product. But there are a number of them out there, so maybe Martis isn't for you, but we're really covering concepts behind these platforms. So, we do implementations of all sorts of them. We're really just wanting to show you the concept of what is out there on the market today so that you're familiar. So we have a poll coming up about what your biggest pain point in the budgeting process is. So I think that should be getting launched right now. So while we're waiting for people to put some of that information in, I'm going to jump ahead to, yes, chasing people down is a good one. So that comes to our first one of collaboration. So I think these are about 6 or so of some of the major pain points that we usually see. We're going to cover all of these into some more detail going forward here so that we can give you some idea of how a platform can really help you with these pain points.
Okay, so we're going to talk about setting up a budgeting tool. And as Robyn mentioned, we just want to cover some of the features and functionalities that you'll find in a typical budgeting platform and get you thinking about some system requirements if you're out there looking for something. So the first thing you want to think about is data integration. You want to make sure that whatever you choose can integrate with your current general ledger package. And when I say integrate, it could be a native integration where the systems are actually talking to each other, or it could be a file-based integration where you're importing and exporting data. But the importance of this is that you want to keep your dimensions in sync. So, if you're adding something to your chart of accounts, or maybe you add a department or get a new grant, you want that to roll right into your budgeting software. And then you also want to bring in your actual data from your general ledger in order to have some better reporting, as well as it could be reference data, or you could use it to build your budget off of that. So you want those systems to be talking to each other. And then again, I know we talked a lot about budgeting in Excel, and this is a replacement for that, obviously, where you see your department worksheets here, instead of you see them in a tab in an Excel workbook, right? And the beauty of this is that you don't have to mess with any formulas. You don't have to worry about linking your worksheets together. You don't have to worry about updating a formula if you add an account or move a row or change a column. So in the software platform, you're going to build out these budget worksheets individually. And here's an example. We're looking at the counseling services department in this example, and you'll notice that there's accounts for income and expense for them to budget. So again, another thing that's really nice is you can tailor this to the department. So if this particular department only had 2 funding sources, maybe you only have 2 accounts for them to worry about budgeting in the income section. And you also want to be able to budget down to all the dimensions that you need to. So if you want to budget down to the project and grant level, you need to get a tool that can accommodate that. And again, it's just, we'll talk a little bit too about how you build out your budget in the next slide. So here's an example of a budget widget, I call it, where you can start from a blank slate, or maybe you want to bring in last year's actuals or last year's budget and just make some adjustments to that. So this tool is really helpful to I want to add 10% to last year's budget and go ahead and spread it over the 12 months for me. And I can also add a note in here where I could say, in this particular month, I might need extra budget, and here's the reason why. And that's really helpful for whoever's going to review and approve that budget. They can have some insight into what your thought process is. Another really great tool that a lot of these platforms offer is modeling. So in this particular example, we're looking at just a rate times quantity type of calculation, where we just have a number of Salesforce users times our monthly rate per user, and that can post to a general ledger account and then post to the appropriate worksheet. But you can also do modeling around things like, say, travel. If you have 4 trips that you're planning, and I want to detail out each of those trips and how much they're going to cost, and I just want to roll it up into my travel general ledger account. It's a good use for modeling. You can also use statistical information for modeling. So maybe it's number of beds, number of visits, anything like that. You can build out the model, and you can use that model over again next year and the year after that. So you can build it once and use it all the time. And now we're going to talk about personnel expense. Obviously the largest expense for most organizations, and usually the hardest to budget, most time consuming, I should say. So you can do this by position or by person, or maybe it's a combination of both. If you have a lot of turnover, maybe you just want to do it by position. You want to be able to accommodate for any cost of living increases or raises that are going to come throughout the year. You also need to be able to budget for your new hires and terminations that might happen. Tracking FTEs is also great use of this. And you can use those FTEs in a model like I had talked about earlier. And then allocating personnel. So you want to be able to allocate down to all the dimensions and percentages that you would like. So if I want to allocate my personnel to certain grants, this is a great way to do that. Use a tool like this. The other thing is some organizations like to budget their benefits down to very specific, do I take a family plan and maybe Robyn takes a single plan? You can do that in some of these tools. So here's an example of where you would start with personnel budgeting. You would set up your pay types. So how do we pay people? Is it hourly? Is it salary? Do they have to have overtime calculations? Do they get a cell phone allowance? What kind of benefits do we offer? And then I'm going to set up my employees. And again, if I want to go down to that benefit level, very detailed, I can add the coverages that they take. And then I'm going to also look at budgeting by position. So in this example, you can see Jane Smith as a COO. She's at department, I think it's 2020. And then I want to take her salary and her expenses, all her fringe, and I want to allocate it out to different dimensions. And what's really nice is the software is obviously going to prevent me from over allocating her. I can't go more than 100%. But what's really nice in some of these tools is you can set up allocation scenarios. So maybe I want to try splitting her out the way I have it here on the screen, or I can adjust those allocation percentages and then run some reports and see how does that affect the budget? How does that affect my grant budget? And once I'm happy with how I've set that up, I can go ahead and post that to the different departments. So it gives you some flexibility to really take a look at how you're doing those allocations.
All right, thanks, Don. So we got to see some really cool features in a software platform and how that could help you. So next we're going to talk about why these features are so important and how they lend to best practices in budgeting. But first, we get to do another poll. So here's where you guys get to brag about how long it takes you to do your budgeting process each year. We have a couple of answers here where you can just do a check mark. Oh, wow, okay. That's a nice long time. So we feel your pain. We see the pain. Let us help you with the pain. So let's talk about some features here. So collaboration is one of the big things that is going to help you throughout your budgeting process. Not one person should be in charge of the budget. That's too much knowledge in one space. And not only is that true, but you don't have that knowledge. Typically, there are program managers, department managers, grant managers, all of those people that work to make the organization operate, and you need their knowledge of what they foresee their next year being. So you need to create those worksheets like Don was showing and distribute those down to people so that you can collaborate and join that information together. So what's really cool is you can have those owners and approvers provide comments back and forth. All interaction on the budget editing is within the platform. So there's no lost emails, there's no confusion, and there's a record. And once that approval takes place with the approver, it automatically will roll up to the organization budget, so you don't have to deal with Excel formulas or anything like that, missed lines. So here's what that looks like. So Don showed us those worksheets. And so here's how they would look. You can just list them all out by the subunit, whether it's department, grant, program. You can assign a target net for each worksheet. This one is showing a $10,000 gain. And then you can assign an owner and an approver for each worksheet. And all communication goes back and forth, is registered on the platform until that approve button gets hit. So it's really a nice, smooth process, and you don't have to worry about integrating it into the org budget after, because it happens automatically. So then there's data drivers. We looked at that modeling where you have that unit times rate situation. We also looked at a percent increase situation. This is so vital to year after year budgeting because it's leaving that trail. It's registering how you do those assumptions. And you might do it now, but every year when you come back to that particular account or program or grant, you may not remember how you did it last year. And instead of looking back through emails or having to have those same conversations, to have all of that modeling and driver data within the platform gives you such a leg up. So Don was talking about statistical accounts and integrating those and using those statistics for your drivers. Once you set up that model, all you have to do is update maybe your units or your rate according to last year's numbers. And so that's where it's really handy to have those reports to look at year after year of what those drivers truly are. And this is where a lot of that analytics comes in, where you're able to monitor year after year how your assumptions are making out against your actuals. Where are you going wrong? Where are you right? Where are you over or under, so that you can adjust a little bit better as you go on through the budgeting process. So really the key to the success is about documentation. It's about leaving that trail, about giving yourself those reminders, and about sharing that knowledge. I think everyone has felt a lot of the turnover pain in the past couple of years, where if one person has all that knowledge and they leave, it's really tough to pick up and continue on in at least at the same capacity. So to have this central location where you have documentation, you have tons of breadcrumbs going of how you have come to the numbers and the figures that you have in your budget, you're able to repeat that even if there is turnover, because you can see how it happened last time. So that's really important. Another great documentation key is versioning. And this goes back to a lot of what the MIS team was talking about of creating those what ifs. What is your probability? What is your risk? Every sort of budget line item has a probability of it, right? We're assuming a certain grant or a certain program expense, but really, how sure are we of that event or program expense? And can we create best or worst case scenarios so that we're prepared? We have a mitigation plan in place of if that worst case scenario happens, we know how that's going to play out for the bottom line and what we have to do in the middle to make that bottom line happen. You can also play with major events. If you're doing a construction project or something like that, you can figure that into your assumptions as well and really see how that's going to affect you. So here is the basic documentation attachment screen. As you can see, you can attach any sort of file on the entity or subunit level. Here's just a guide, which is also a fantastic idea to write a documentation of what you did. Or you can attach things like a contractor's estimate if you're doing a construction project, just any sort of substantiation for why you arrived at a certain budget number. It's just helpful to look back on and see where maybe from year to year things won't be the same. And then here's the what if scenario or a versioning screen. You can come up with as many versions as you want. You can use them in different ways, however you choose, and it's really easy to switch back and forth between them. And there are the dashboards and the planner views, and you're able to interchange those as well. So that becomes really handy.
So for your budgeting tool, you really want it to be part of, a living, breathing part of your operation. It's not something that should just be an annual event. You want to look at, forecasting and maybe having a rolling forecast where you're bringing in actuals as they're occurring, and then you're projecting out based on your budget where you're going to be at the end of the year, and is that going to actually be where you want to be? And if not, what adjustments do you have to make today to make sure you're still in line with where you need to be at the end of the year? And you can also take like your board approved budget, and simply copy that with a click of a button and then do a reforecast. So, if something internal or external big event happened, maybe you lost a funder or you had a global pandemic, and you need to readjust your budget based on that, you can do that very easily, and then report against your board approved budget or your reforecast. And then you want to give some tools to people to monitor their budget. So for a grant manager, it's really important that they can see in real time what is the balance left in their grant. You don't want to leave money on the table at the end of the year. You want to be able to be spending what you can. And so there are some tools in the general ledger packages today that also allow for that. Like if you're going to make a purchase request, you could look up your budget right there on the screen to see, okay, if I make this purchase, am I going to go over my budget? So those are the kind of things you want to be looking at. And then for reporting, obviously you want the reports to be actionable. You're looking at reports, the program directors are looking at reports, the board. Everybody wants their reports to give them enough information that it's actually going to allow them to take an action before it's too late. So those are the key things that you want to be using your budget for. Here's an example of a dashboard in this reporting tool. And this is just really a snapshot of information, but it's really good because it stands right out to you, that there's an abnormality in August here. So, now I can go to some other reports and drill down and see, okay, what's going on here? What's causing that huge spike? And then you want to have a tool that's going to allow you to have just a few key reports that you can change the way they look and feel just using a filter or changing a row set, as opposed to building out 20 different reports to get the information you want. So in this example, this is the same exact report, and the top view, I'm just looking at it by department. I can see my departments as my rows, and I can see what their bottom line budget was month to month. But now I want to take a look at my account level. So I just switched the rows to accounts, and now I can take a look at that. So these tools are just so wonderful for reporting and pulling it all together and giving you a quick look at what you really want to look at in an easy format. So.
All right, so hopefully some of the stuff looked pretty interesting to you. I exposed you to something new, to see what's out there on the market. Again, Martis may not be the solution for you, but there is something out there for you, and we can certainly help you transition to that. So the first thing that we would recommend for you to do, just like all of our software selections, is document your requirements. What exactly are you looking for? Keep yourself focused on the key functionalities that you need, so that when you do go out and look at other things, you don't have salespeople talking you into things that you weren't actually looking for in the first place. So this is always such a vital first step, just to arrange your thoughts, document your thoughts. And then after that, have fun with it. Go look at some platforms, look at what's out there, talk to people about doing demos. Everyone's all, and anyone's willing to talk to you about selling you a software platform, right? So you are the customer. Get yourself out there and ask for information. And obviously talk to us. We have some experience with a lot of different platforms, and we're certainly willing to help you with any sort of implementation or questions that you have. I hope you found this informational. It was lovely to be here with you all today, and thank you very much.